Hello, everyone, and welcome back on Nextv Series Europe. I'm glad to welcome with us Pavel Butorin for this one-to-one session. We are sponsored today by US Agency for Global Media, and we will be talking about Current Time, which is the digital and TV network that Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty are operating in the CIS region. So I will let Pavel, the director of Current Time, introduce himself and the service, and we will be talking also about their strategy in terms of content production and distribution. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box that is next to on the right side of your screen, and we will take a few minutes at the end of this session to answer. So Pavel, please introduce yourself and say welcome to our attendees.
Thank you, Ophelia. It's a pleasure to be here, and hello everyone. I do appreciate this opportunity to answer a few questions about Current Time. Current Time is a 24/7 Russian language television and digital network. In Russian, it's known as Настоящее время. That's the Russian term for it. And it is led by Radio Free Europe in cooperation with the Voice of America. The channel is available on satellite, cable in several markets, and in Europe and Asia, and obviously worldwide on its OTT platforms and social media. The channel itself was launched about 5 years ago, and it now reaches millions of television viewers and garners literally billions of views across its social networks annually. So this is it in a nutshell, and please answer. I'm ready to answer your questions, Ophelia.
All right. So I know that you have maybe a few slides to show us also that we can have a look of the.
Oh, right. Let me actually thank you for reminding me, Ophelia. Yeah, let me show you a quick sizzle reel that we've prepared here to share with you. So we do focus on news, especially on live news, on live coverage, which is of course a rare commodity in much of our broadcast region. So we do provide live news, and we are available on television, like I said, obviously a website, but also we're very active on social media. I wanted to make that point as well.
All right, thank you. So yeah, you mentioned news, but I've seen also images of local countries and population. I believe that you're also doing a lot of documentaries. Can you tell us a bit more about your editorial line?
Absolutely. Well, speaking of editorial line, let me also tell you that we are funded by the US Congress. However, we're completely editorially independent. Our independence is protected by the U.S. law, And nobody ever tells us what to cover and how to cover it. But of course, in addition to news, as you mentioned, we do produce a considerable number of documentaries and docuseries, and we support independent filmmakers inside Russia and outside Russia as well. This year, I hope you can see my slide. Just 3 examples of some of the original productions that we've made in the past few years. For example, a TV series, a mini-series about the history of the Russian internet and how it developed from a free space to essentially a very restricted government-controlled internet right now. We produced several documentaries in Belarus, for example, a documentary that hopefully I can talk a little bit more a bit later, but it's a documentary produced entirely based on user-generated content. We also support independent filmmakers. A good example is Vitaly Mansky. He is a well-known Russian documentary filmmaker, and he is independent. And independent film is going through a pretty rough patch right now in Russia. But Vitaly Mansky is one of the last men standing there in terms of producing independent films. And one of the films that he is produced with our support is called Gorbachev Heaven, and it's based on it's actually playing in theaters now in select theaters around the world, and it is a very recent interview with the first president of the Soviet Union, first and last president of the Soviet Union, with Mikhail Gorbachev. And so we are really home to one of the largest collections of documentaries and docuseries on current affairs, history, business, education, culture in Russian. And we also support more than a dozen independent film festivals in our area, in Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, and the Baltics.
Okay, great. So yeah, one thing that you mentioned also being the issues for independent content producers to actually find fundings in Russia. What kind of challenges are you facing in this market, especially when it comes to independence of content?
Well, right now, one of the main problems we're facing inside Russia is our designation as so-called foreign agent in the country. Russia has included several media organizations and human rights organizations on its list of so-called foreign agents. Unfortunately, this list is now used to go after really anyone that has the courage to express any dissent. And we happen to be on that list among other news organizations such as Medusa and TV Rain, another independent TV channel inside Russia. And unfortunately, this may affect our access, especially going forward, our access to sources. Russia imposes certain restrictions and requirements upon so-called foreign agents. They require those foreign agents to label their content on TV and in social media. That's something that we're not doing, and because we do consider it to be interference in our editorial policy and in our content. But in general, being an independent journalist is very challenging right now in Russia. Journalists often receive threats of violence, often from non-state entities and individuals. So there are certainly many challenges. Despite those challenges, we do persevere. We do have a very large network of journalists that are willing to work with us. We do hope to continue to be able to provide the much needed coverage of current affairs to our Russian audiences.
Mm-hmm. So, because of this challenges that you're facing in the access of sources, you're also using new means to produce fresh content. What can you tell us a bit more about this? You mentioned UGC content earlier.
Yes, very good question, because we do have to always, look forward and look for new ways to obtain content, especially in areas where we don't have good access. And one such example, and I hope you can see my slide now, is this documentary that we produced in Belarus. We solicited content through our social media, through our mobile app, through our website, and but also collected it through Telegram. Of course, we sought permission from the sources. And so this documentary is about the first week of protests that erupted in Belarus in August 2020, after the disputed presidential election. And we asked our viewers, our audience, to send in their own video that they shot. And the producer, Olga Abramczyk, in this case, the author of this film, she went through literally hundreds of hours of footage that was supplied by our viewers, and this was the product of that effort. Another example is soliciting questions, for example, for our guests. This year was again an example from Belarus. This was one of the opposition leaders in Belarus, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. When we interviewed her, we had asked our audience to supply their questions, and there she was answering questions from our audience. So this is again something that is very much unavailable to our audiences on other platforms, because there's always this divide between official government-sponsored media and the viewer.
Mm-hmm. So you started mentioning social media. Now I believe we can move forward to your distribution strategy. So first, if you can tell us a bit more about the footprint of Current Time and how active you are on the region on which accesses.
The TV channel is available on various traditional platforms, cable and satellite in some areas. Then also, so we distribute the whole channel, but we also offer our select programs to many partners that in turn play them on their own respective platforms. We have about 200 distributors in 22 countries picking up the full channel, and about 70 affiliates picking up several Current Time programs, and some of them happen to be in Russia as well. So on traditional broadcast platforms, we are essentially available from Central Europe all the way to Central Asia, but of course on OTT and online, on online platforms anywhere in the world. We have a fairly popular smart TV app, and we also have a mobile app that, and its downloads only increase. It is essentially censorship proof. You can't block any of this stuff. This is something that we take a lot of pride in. A major platform for now in Russia and its periphery for us is YouTube. On YouTube, we do live news, and we offer TV programs and reports, but also a lot of documentaries, our original documentaries and docuseries, and various social media videos. Instagram, for example, in much of our area is a huge source of information for people. It's not just used for entertainment, but it's used by users to gather news from around the world. This is an example of our social video about, it's called 7 Facts About the Taliban. And this particular video is at 1.2 million views. only goes to show how popular Instagram is in a lot of our broadcast area. We have a separate channel on social media for Asia, for our Asian viewers, for Central Asia. We have a separate TV program, but this for example, Asia's Instagram is particularly popular, and we're very attentive to our comments and social media engagement. As a matter of fact, we have a team of people that actually work on engagement and they work with members of the audience. And this is just again one example of one of our TV shows, a regular TV show called Person on the Map. The producer goes to Russia's hinterland and talks to people that are rarely spoken to, and they often complain about how they're completely ignored by the state and state-supported media. I really like the fact that the comments are always very productive and constructive. They're quality comments, and they say, "Look, this is what we would want to see on our TV." And thank you very much for the story. And they say city residents should see more of this stuff. And the one comment for this particular show was even express some regret about us being designated a foreign agent.
I would invite our audience now to ask some questions if you have any. One thing that I would like to know, maybe from a personal point of view, is do you think that the rise and the expansion of social media and access to online news is actually working as a counterpower in the region, and that you're really capitalizing on that? And where do you see that heading also, if this will create more opportunities for you in the future, or if this is also getting controlled in some ways?
Well, we can certainly view this as a challenge, but also as an opportunity. This is for us a new way to reach new audiences. We actually, from the moment Current Time was created, our goal was to target younger audiences, and it doesn't really deter us that social media have already become for many younger people the main source of information. So a challenge, though, for us is to find ways to counter disinformation, fake news that also is spread very fast on social media. Again, the challenge in terms of trying and countering fake news is to do it on the day, to be able to serve as this rapid reaction force, and to
de-escalate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also, how much of the conflict that still exists in our region, it is driven, unfortunately, by social media. And so it is a challenge, not just for us, but for all "quote unquote" traditional media organizations, to try and prevent that from happening. So we do see this as a challenge, but also as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And also, as a side note, social media which are active in the CIS and in Russia in general are not the same as in Western Europe or Western countries in general. Do you see that also as a challenge for news to circulate among the whole continent?
Yeah, I would say that there's certainly a difference in the way social media operate and the way people use social media. There is in much of our broadcast region, people tend to distrust the government, to distrust the TV. So we're particularly confronted with this in terms of COVID and the unfortunate anti-vaccination sentiment in much of our area. Most of that, despite government's efforts to promote vaccination and promote masks, etc., so much disinformation is spread on social media that I would think that makes social media in countries like Ukraine, Russia, and even some of the Baltics different from, let's say, how social media is used in some other parts of the world.
Okay. Do you wanna finish this session now with some projects that you're working on? If you can tell us what Current Time is doing now, what you're looking forward to in the future.
There are certain topics that are sort of evergreen for us. Our programming is really rooted in deep respect for human dignity, regardless of their, of the people's ethnicity, religion, gender identity or gender expression, sexual orientation. Again, these are things that are, basically a part and parcel of our human rights agenda. And with that in mind, we are developing programs that do center around those topics. Prisoners' rights. We actually just recently ran a whole project, a series about, it's called Prison Alphabet, about the rights of prisoners. And in Russia, we want to address the almost dangerous profession of being a lawyer in Russia, in Belarus. Gender equity is a huge issue for us, and we have done several projects on that topic, but we're looking forward to doing more. And we have produced, as I mentioned, a series about the history of the Russian internet, and that chapter is definitely not closed. Russia is still working on a so-called sovereign internet. So this is something that we would like to revisit and perhaps consider ways to consider a new project on that topic.
Okay, that all sounds very, very exciting.
Thank you, Philly.
Thank you very much. I think we can leave the stage now to the next panel. So this will start in about 10 minutes. There will be a discussion between operators, C-level executives about the TV landscape post-COVID. And this session will be hosted by our sponsor, Zatu. So Pavel, thank you very much for your time and for this very thorough presentation. I'm looking forward to see you in other times.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.